Hello, amazing humans around the world. Hope you're doing well out there. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp, the most censored comedian in America. But I don't have a lot of time. I don't have as much time as I used to for the comedy now because, we're in the midst of watching live streamed a genocide. Let me rephrase that: watching a genocide live streamed in real time. It might be the first time it's been done to this level where you can just flip on your computer, not your TV, because they won't be showing it on TV. We always heard from Gil Scott-Heron that the revolution will not be televised, but really it's the genocide will not be televised. It will, however, be live streamed around the world. And thank you all for caring enough to tune in to this show and so many others that are covering this awful and important time. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Today, I'm going to be getting into how Netanyahu, at least behind closed doors, actually, some of it's in front of closed doors. Wait, no, some of it's in front of open doors. Some of it is in your face. Some of it is full frontal. Netanyahu, full frontal, is admitting what his goals are. Some of it's behind closed doors, which many in the mainstream even are now reporting. Some of it is done in your face, full frontal, which is not how you ever want Netanyahu. And I'm going to be bringing that to you in a few minutes. I'm also going to be bringing to you this is multiple studies, several studies showing that anti-capitalist views, degrowth views that would actually put this world on a sustainable path so that we and our children and grandchildren could actually have a planet and a world. There are a lot of studies showing that it is hugely popular, not just in countries that are suffering under immense amounts of poverty, but because they're, the greatest victims maybe of this global capitalist system, but also in the rich countries, also in the so-called rich countries, even as so many across America. Was it 66% of Americans don't actually know how they're going to pay for their rent next month? Live basically paycheck to paycheck, or put it onto credit cards, which we have over $1 trillion. Woo! Put on the party hats, blow the party noisemakers. Over $1 trillion worth of credit card debt, which is how most Americans are getting by now. So even in the rich countries, most people are not rich. But anyway, I'm going to bring to you a lot of studies that show how popular that position is. And obviously, it's an incredibly important position because understanding why we need degrowth, why we need to set fire to capitalism, is to understand a way that we can all be here in 20 or 50 years. I mean, not all of us. Some of you are going to get in car accidents. Sorry about that. But a lot of us can still be here then. But I'm going to begin with the genocide because it is tough to really, I don't know, cover anything else, which, it's just when something's this important and this gut-wrenching and this awful, it's tough to even bring up other subjects, even though they are incredibly important. But and hello to everyone saying hi in the chat. Thank you for being here. Please make sure and hit share and subscribe and follow. We're almost cracking that 70,000 barrier on Rumble. That's rumble.com/LeeCamp. So I'm excited to do that. But okay, first I want to show you this interaction with the spokesperson for the State Department. This is the journalist asking the question is Saeed Erekat. And there's so many parts of this that I just want to tear apart. Their garbage, the propaganda, how they try and dodge the fact that they are party to, the U.S. is party to a genocide right now. And I am excited that so many Americans now understand this. But anyway, let's play some of this. See what he's saying.
Problem of this.
Oh, let you know. Try and play with some volume, actually. Oh, actually, you guys probably heard it. I couldn't hear it.
Problem of this entire situation, which is that Hamas has embedded itself inside civilians, inside civilian homes, inside mosques, in schools, in churches. It is Hamas that is putting these civilians in harm's way.
So I and a few others have furiously and often debunked the whole human shields insanity. It's racist, it's wrong, it's propaganda. But you notice that, so Hamas is the government, right, of Gaza. Therefore, anything connected to the government of Gaza is technically Hamas. So therefore, Israel can say anything near a government building is Hamas. And therefore, they, argue they can just bomb everyone. As they've said publicly, no one in Gaza is innocent, which, of course, is the statement of a genocidal maniac. That is an open, full frontal statement of genocide to say no one is innocent. But the other thing I want to highlight here is he goes, well, it's Hamas's fault that so many civilians are dying, right? Because they have embedded themselves in the civilian population. Well, that's interesting that he puts it that way, because let me ask you this. Of the population of Israel, how many of them are part of the military? Oh, all of them. Almost every goddamn Israeli has been in the military, because it's mandatory to serve in the military. So, yeah, there are a few who have not, like Hasids, Orthodox Jews do not serve in the military. But a large percentage of everyone in Israel is military or a military family. So if we went by this definition, by the definition that is put forward by Israel, put forward by the United States right here, if we went by this definition, then it would be legal and fine and okay to bomb everyone in Israel. Everyone. Now, if you don't believe that that's okay, like I don't believe that's okay, then you understand that what he's saying right now is genocide, and it's insane, and it's wrong, and it's morally bankrupt, and it's unethical, and I've run out of adjectives. It is horrific. And yet they act, oh, Hamas has embedded themselves in the civilian population. Oh, really? And yet everyone in Israel has served in the military. So let's not use that guy's definition. Let's not use the Israeli definition of who counts as an innocent civilian, because otherwise you could just bomb everyone anywhere all the time.
For all the questions, that I understand why people I stand here and people ask me questions about what.
I like that right there. It seemed he was struggling over who it was that was standing there. When everyone stands here, when it's me, when I stand here,
Israel should do. I'm happy to take those questions. Right. I'm surprised I don't hear more people saying, why doesn't Hamas lay down its arms? Why doesn't Hamas move out of schools? Why doesn't Hamas take additional steps to protect?
I love the idea that when you are living in a concentration camp, when you have been forced inside of an open air prison for decades and decades, why don't you just let it happen? Just let it happen. Just lay down your arms and let it happen, man. Now, this is not saying I endorse civilian murder. I don't think any civilian should be murdered or held hostage. But to just say to an entire society living inside a prison camp, why don't you just stop and just let it be, man?
Civilians, because we think they should, as we think Israel should.
Okay, so you are asking Hamas to surrender. Is that what you're asking?
We would welcome Hamas laying down its arms and surrendering at any point.
Hamas is not an army. They don't have air force.
Right. So this is another important point. This is not two warring armies. This is a occupied refugee encampment that are held in prison in an area the size of, Manhattan or Washington, D.C. or something. And they are, and yet we're told this is a fight. This is a war between the people in the concentration camp and one of the largest militaries in the world, at least in terms of firing power. So it's not a war. It's not a fight. It's just a genocide of a population.
Of course, they don't have a navy. They don't have artillery. They have none of these things. They don't really have any kind of regular kind of structure that they can conduct their surrender.
Saeed, they may not have a navy. No. Let me finish. They may not have an air force. They have sufficient firepower to have killed 1,200 people.
Actually, they didn't kill 1,200 people on October 7th, because we have now learned, and I've brought you multiple levels of evidence. I've brought you live interviews with the tank gunners, the Israeli tank gunners who fired on civilian structures, saying they were told to fire on civilian structures. Many of the deaths on October 7th were done by the IDF, where the IDF just murdering everybody around. And so they did not kill 1,200 on October 7th. Now, I don't know what percentage they did kill. Maybe it was half. Maybe they killed 600 on October 7th. But I can tell you one thing, it wasn't frickin' 1,200 people. So as we hear that repeated, that is propaganda. That is what that is how they achieve you all, meaning, everyone around the world, that they can, all the people they can, they get them to believe that these things are true. Because if you repeat something enough, studies have shown that people conflate familiarity with truth. So I would imagine most Americans, if you ask them how many people were murdered by Hamas on October 7th, they'd probably say 1,200 if they know a number. If they have any number, they'll say 1,200. Because that's what you do. And that's the same thing. It was the same thing with so many issues that have just been debunked or collapsed or provable frauds from the beginning, like Russiagate, like WMD in Iraq. You just keep saying it and saying it and saying it, and enough people will buy into it. Okay, I want to get to another video from this same interaction with this creep. Again, the journalist is Saeed Arakat.
My last question to you, the UN, a former official in the UN, Mr. Mukaiba, said that the most clear-cut case of genocide, the Israeli bombardment and the killing of 20,000 people thus far, is the most clear-cut case of genocide. Do you agree with him?
So the State Department has a rigorous process for evaluating what constitutes genocide, ethnic cleansing, or a crime against humanity. Those are terms we only use with very explicit care. You've seen us be very deliberate. You've seen us be very deliberate about that in the past. We are monitoring the evolving situations and are examining facts as they develop.
Oh, they're monitoring. Does that make you feel better? They're monitoring this genocide, and they're really thinking hard about it. But of course, everything he's saying is utter garbage. It's a dumpster fire of bullshit rhetoric, because we've seen the United States accuse China of a genocide against the Uyghurs, even though at no point in those accusations, even in the accusations, these are U.S. Western accusations, at no point did they say China's killing Uyghurs. So there's, even by the accusation, even if you want to word for word believe everything the U.S. has said about China, which is insane, why would you do that? But even if you did, someone's telling me to turn up the volume, but I don't control your volume. You mean on the clip? Oh, sorry, you're right. It was down. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mimi. But even if you want to believe everything that they say about the Uyghurs, they have not accused China of killing Uyghurs. So they're calling it genocide despite the fact there is zero killing. Then you have Gaza, where we know for a fact that thousands have been murdered by Israel. We know for a fact that they have bombed the hospitals and schools and killed UN workers and killed journalists and killed medics. And we know for a fact that they have killed thousands of children, that they are intentionally bombing innocent civilians. All of that is obvious and factual, and the U.S. will not call this genocide. So when he says we have careful criteria, no, you don't. Your criteria is it a country that we're trying to defend, via propaganda? And if so, then they don't commit genocide. Like the U.S. can't commit genocide. Israel can't commit genocide. Britain can't commit genocide. Anyone who's an ally of the U.S. Can't commit genocide. Anyone who's an enemy of the U.S., they're all committing genocide. But on top of this, just to add in here, the U.S. also is part of this, right? I covered yesterday how even the Wall Street Journal was saying that the U.S. government has shipped at least 15,000 bombs to Israel in order to murder these men, women, and children in a mass scale. So this is the U.S. is doing this as is Israel.
It's an extremely challenging space to get all the information that might be available, but
it's a challenging space. It's such a, whenever you see just thousands upon thousands of innocent people being murdered, it's just a challenging space to decide if it's genocide. It's really challenging.
But we support Israel's right to continue to take action to ensure that Hamas can never conduct terrorist attacks like it did on October 7th.
To take action, just take any action they want. Just run around murdering everyone. Doesn't matter. Taking action.
7th. Again, And as part of that, we urge Israel to take all possible measures to minimize civilian harm. And I've just gone through a number of those measures.
But
I'm going to talk about this more, but they keep telling Israel to take all possible measures, but we're going to ship you bombs so that you can keep doing this indiscriminate killing. We're going to keep sending you the dumbest bombs we have, the ones that just blow up whole neighborhoods. But yeah, take concern with the civilians. Please do that.
it doesn't qualify for genocide.
I just answered that. Go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you. Going back to your
No, you didn't, but we didn't expect you to, because you're a sociopathic lunatic who's just trying to get ahead in the State Department. Okay, I think I have one more clip of this idiot.
I was pretty clear about that. I think the secretary was pretty
So,
clear about that on Thursday.
Give us a figure. What would be acceptable? What would be acceptable? Because you talked about
Saeed, we mourn the loss of every civilian life. We don't.
Do you think, can I ask you folks, do you think the White House and the State Department, do you think they mourn the loss of every civilian life? Do you think they have a moment of silence for every civilian that's killed in Gaza or Iraq or Afghanistan or Ukraine or any of the places that we've obliterated, Yemen and Libya and Syria? Do you think they mourn even if they just took 1 second of silence for every civilian? Because you got to remember, they killed 6 million with just the war on terror alone. If they took 1 second, they'd be silent for years and years and years.
We don't want to see any civilians
what have you
killed
done
in this.
What have you done to really minimize that? Remember, Washington, Gaza is the size of Washington, D.C. When you tell people to move, like now, and they have nowhere to go, they're striking in Khan Yunis. They're saying, actually, we're hitting every place in Gaza. So where should people go?
People
What
should
should
go.
be the end?
Saeed, let's take it one question at a time. Before you asked a question, let me answer.
Sure.
People should go to the UN designated sites.
That is truly incredible. They should go to the UN designated sites. First of all, Israel has already shown, and I'm going to get into this in a second too, that they will bomb these sites that they told people to go to, that they told people it's safe there. We won't bomb there. They then have been bombing there. So bullshit. Secondly, go to the UN sites. They've been killing UN workers. They have killed 100 UN workers. They're aiming for UN workers, but refugees should go to the UN sites. It's ridiculous. And they know it's ridiculous. They know this is garbage. Okay, I want to get to let's see. I'll actually jump to Blinken's statement. This is statements by Antony Blinken, supposedly chastising Israel behind closed doors, telling them they need to stop bombing so many innocent civilians. But of course, we're providing them the bombs at the same time. And this is an Israeli outlet that's very pro-Israel. So these are not like leftist writing here. Blinken told Israel it cannot operate in southern Gaza in the way it has done in the north. So basically, you've committed genocide in the north, but ease off it a little in the south, please. Indicated that Israel has weeks, not months, to complete its declared mission of destroying Hamas. Listen, buddy, you have weeks to finish your genocide, okay? Can you just hustle it up on the genocide? U.S. administration has repeatedly backed Israel's goal of eliminating Hamas in the wake of the terror group's October 7th slaughter of 1,200 Israelis that we know is not 1,200. The number that Hamas killed is far lower than that. But as indicated, it is increasingly troubled by the civilian fatalities and widespread destruction in the Hamas-run Strip. Blinken apparently said this is behind closed doors. So supposedly they didn't want this out, but someone wanted it out. Blinken said you can't operate in southern Gaza in the way you did in the north. There are 2 million Palestinians there. You need to evacuate fewer people from their homes, be more accurate in the attacks, not hit UN facilities, and ensure that there are enough protected areas for civilians. Yeah, right. The IDF chief then responded, we follow a number of principles: proportionality, distinction, and laws of war. No, you don't. there were instances where we attacked on the basis of those principles and instances where we decided not to attack because we waited for a better opportunity. They have ignored every law of war that the international community has. They have bombed hospitals, attacked journalists, killed journalists. They've killed more journalists than were killed in Vietnam, in the U.S. Complete genocide against the Vietnamese people. They've ignored every rule of war that exists, and they act like they abide by them. I would imagine that it was probably Blinken and the U.S. government that leaked this back and behind closed doors, back and forth. And the reason they would leak it is to pretend, to make believe that the U.S. is doing anything about this genocide, to pretend that they are actively trying to stop Israel from committing this ethnic cleansing, but they're not. They're shipping bombs over there, 15,000 at least so far. And just to remind you of, here's a fun moment, just to remind you of the propaganda your mainstream media is involved in. Alan McLeod posted this. This is the Washington Post. It says, 4 fragile lives found ended in Gaza hotel. 4 babies found ended in the Gaza hospital. Huh. What does found ended mean? Oh, you mean murdered. Oh, okay. They just found them ended. They just, don't you hate that when you go over to someone's house and you find them ended? This is the level of damn near poetry that they have to use to try and create a phrase that is devoid of all murder and killing and action by Israel. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The words, they are craftsmen. These people, they are word craftsmen. The lives found ended. No, they murdered babies. Israel murdered babies, and it's also insane that Israel's murdering babies when the murdered baby trope has been a useful piece of propaganda for the U.S. going way back. But some of the most well-known examples are, in order for to invade Iraq and attack Iraq in the first Gulf War, they put forward the completely false, debunked story that Iraqi soldiers were taking Kuwaiti infants out of incubators and throwing them on the floor to die. Now it was completely debunked, but it served its purpose. It horrified the American public and many Americans. It manufactured consent for war, consent for that first Iraq war. Another time they used the fake murder of babies is with the Hamas attack, October 7th. There's so far no evidence that Hamas murdered babies. Now, babies may have been killed by IDF tank shelling. So I think there were some babies murdered during that and the crossfire of the IDF efforts to just kill everyone in the area. But there's no evidence that Hamas just executed babies. So that is a standard propaganda trope. And here it is real, but done by Israel. Israel has killed babies. And even the Washington Post, despite their ridiculous word salad to make you not realize who did it or what they did, even the Washington Post is admitting that Israel killed infants, which is just unbelievably disgusting. Unbelievably. Okay. Let me get to what I promised about Israel, how Netanyahu, both behind closed doors and full frontal, has admitted what his game plan is and has talked about what his game plan is. So when your mainstream media is running around saying, well, Israel has to get rid of Hamas, and how do they do that? They are ignoring the fact that Netanyahu and other government ministers have admitted the truth as to what their aims are. Some behind closed doors that have been linked, and some right in your face. Now, I've brought you some of these before, but some of this is new information, at least new for me. But here's kind of a key point. This is the one that's behind closed doors that has, there's been multiple people reporting this. This is from The Nation magazine. Netanyahu is now quietly, this is not public, shopping around a proposal to quote unquote thin out Gaza's population. That means genocide. If you'd say, I'm going to thin out a population, innocents and all, then you're admitting to wanting to commit genocide. A proposal to thin out Gaza's population and expel the surviving residents into neighboring countries. A proposal that he is pitching to the leaders of both parties in Congress. Now, I had told you that that there were other evidence. There was other evidence showing that Israel's aim was to kill as many people as possible in Gaza, and then try and force Egypt to open their borders so that the refugees will be forced into Egypt and living in tents in the desert there. But this is the part of this that's new is Netanyahu is shopping this idea around behind closed doors, trying to get enough countries to sign on. If the U.S. were to begin saying that's the best solution, or if other countries were, if Egypt were to open their borders, there are several things that Netanyahu is trying to achieve in order to effectively complete the ethnic cleansing that's being attempted. To continue from the nation, this policy amounting to a second Nakba would not only be a moral atrocity, it would destroy the reputation of Israel and the United States around the world for decades to come. The consequences of this policy in terms of future terrorism and also loss of international credibility and fraying of alliances would be incalculable. Now, I think that's true, but that's also the opinion of the nation, the magazine. So that's, the U.S. government might not care about that at all. But so again, Netanyahu is running around behind closed doors trying to get nations to sign on to this. Here's from The Guardian, which is a very mainstream outlet these days. Israel's endgame is to push Palestinians into Egypt, and the West is cheering it on. And as I've covered before, Israel had been telling people that the safe area to go to is South Gaza. So they were trying to get everyone out of North Gaza, both by killing them and by telling them to leave, telling them to flee south. And millions did. By most counts, it is now nearing 2 million people in South Gaza. And there's only 2.3, well, before these atrocities, there were only 2.3 million in all of Gaza to begin with. That, only is a relative term. It's one of the most densely populated areas of the world. But so, and here's from the New York Times as well. Israel quietly pushed for Egypt to admit large numbers of Gazans. The Israeli government has not publicly called for large numbers of Gazans to move to Egypt. Sorry, the Israel government has not publicly, that's the key word, stress the wrong word, has not publicly called for large numbers of Gazans to move to Egypt, but in private, diplomats say it has pushed for just that, augmenting Palestinian fears of a permanent expulsion, which is permanent ethnic cleansing. When you kill and force out an entire population of people simply for who they are, simply for their racial or ethnic background, that is ethnic cleansing. And so behind closed doors, Israel is actively doing this. But when I said some of it is full frontal, let's remember, and I brought you this video as well, Netanyahu, days before October 7th, just days before October 7th, goes in front of the UN, holds up a map of the Middle East that has Palestine completely removed. A map that does not show the West Bank, does not show Gaza, does not show Palestine in any way, no dividing lines, just says Israel everywhere that there is Palestinian territory. So holds up a map for all of the UN and the world to see where Gaza, where Palestinians are wiped out, are ethnically cleansed. And that, maybe I can find that map real quick, but that's, to me, that's a full-on admission of what his aim was. Yeah, here it is. Here's Netanyahu holding up the map. This is just days before. Let's see. I find a bigger image of it. This is just days before October 7th, and this goes to also what I was saying, which is that Israel, what I've said on multiple live streams, Israel was ready for and wanted this attack by Hamas to happen. Now, that doesn't mean they knew the scope of it, but as I brought to you yesterday, even the New York Times has said Israel knew the attack was going to happen. And here is Netanyahu days before the attack holding up a map where Israel is gone. Where Palestine is gone. So and I know it's not very big, so you can't quite see it, but there are no Palestinian deliberation lines or anything on there at all. So we have multiple. So we have a lot of sources, both public and private, showing that this is Israel's aim. And now I'm going to bring you Stephen Donziger posted this. This is about how Israel is now attacking the south of Gaza, the part where they told people to flee. This is Stephen Donziger, the renowned lawyer, and he's saying, stunning new report from UNICEF documents how Israel is absolutely pulverizing the parts of Gaza where civilians were told to evacuate to avoid the bombing. Forcing civilians to leave home for their quote-unquote safety and then bombing them is shameful. I mean, shameful is about the lightest term you can use for it. Aggressively shameful. It is morally bankrupt. It is monstrous. It is psychopathic. They've told them to move to the south, and now they are bombing the south. They're bombing refugee camps, which basically all of Gaza is, but they're bombing the areas that they told people would be safe. And that's because that is their aim. Their aim is to kill or push out everyone in Gaza. So how do you do that? Well, you bomb an area, you tell them to go to another area, then you bomb that area. That is their goal. That is their aim. It's called genocide, folks. And if this doesn't fit the definition, then nothing does. Oh, yeah, and I just want to show you one last. This is a mainstream media also covering it, although I'm sure they do plenty of propaganda in it. But this is this is an NBC News. A forced exodus from Gaza to Egypt. And then they say Israeli concept paper fuels outrage. So that's the propaganda part. They're trying to get people to just think it's a concept paper. Well, it's not just a concept paper. You also have Netanyahu publicly saying it. You have Netanyahu saying it behind closed doors. You have other Israeli ministers saying it both publicly and privately. So it's not just a concept paper. It is the reality. And I, the plus side of this, to give you just a little bit of plus side, is I'm amazed at the number of Americans, especially young Americans, that get this, that get it, that understand that a genocide is not just being done with our tax dollars, but we are shipping bombs to it and we're spouting propaganda for it. And there are so many people that get it. For the first time in history, more people who claim to be Democrats across this country, not the government, but the people, more people side with Palestinians than with Israel. And there's been large changes in the number of independents and Republicans that also that side with Palestinians. And it is just wonderful to see so many people standing up against this ethnic cleansing campaign and understanding that Zionism does not equal Judaism. I'm an anti-Zionist Jew, and there are millions of us, and there are also millions of Zionist Christians. There are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews around the entire world. So the Zionist project, the Israeli project, the project of making Israel a battleship for the United States in the Middle East is less supported by Jews than it is supported by non-Jews. So to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Judaism is just garbage. It's just full-on bullshit. Okay. Let's get to, I want to show Christiane Amanpour on CNN. Oh, by the way, well, actually, I'll do that one a little later. Let's take a break from Israel for a few minutes. And I want to get to this because this is so important. And this also talks about the shifting of opinions around the world. these new studies, some of them new, some of them older, but there's just a lot of studies showing the number of people around the world who understand that degrowth and anti-capitalism are the only way we end up with a sustainable world. And so that topic, as well as I'm going to bring you this clip between Christiane Amanpour, CNN, and the State Department official who has quit because he no longer wants to be a part of weapons shipments to Israel, to this genocide. I'm going to bring you that interview. There's so much to pick apart in it, some important and some just ridiculous. But I'm going to bring you all of that at rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me over there. Here, I'll give you the link. But also, I have a new merch page as well. So you all can go check out all the stuff there. That's at leecamp.com/merch. Leecamp.net, which is on the screen, is my locals page. That's the community where you can support me, but you can also hang out with all the awesome people there. But leecamp.com/merch is where I have just kind of set up a more official merch page. It's got the Yard Rock stuff in there because, as you know, I'm running an inanimate object for President of the United States because it'll be far better than any of the corporate candidates. It's a rock that I found. And there's Yard Rock t-shirts and a mug. Anything of the Yard Rock stuff that you buy, 50% of that goes to 50% of the proceeds goes to eliminating medical debt across the United States. And then there is a bunch of other stuff like my books. I have 3 books. My earlier book, Moment of Clarity, and then from a few years ago, Bullet Points and Punchlines, and then my latest, this year's ebook, Dangerous Ideas. You can check out all of those. Also, my old comedy albums are on there, Chaos for the Weary and Pepper Spray the Tears Away. And why not couple of Redacted Tonight things as well. Redacted Tonight mug and Redacted Tonight t-shirt. Because I know, right, the Redacted Tonight's gone, but people were fans, and you're telling me you don't buy a Ultimate Warrior t-shirt now and again? Just because he's gone, you're not wearing the t-shirt? You're telling me you don't buy a Guns N' Roses t-shirt, even though they haven't put out anything good in the past 20 years? So anyway, Redacted Tonight t-shirt, Redacted Tonight mug. All that stuff is at leecamp.com/merch. Okay, let's do it. Let's go over to rumble.com/leecamp, as well as my locals page. If you're watching on locals, all of it will continue exactly as is. See you over there. Free to watch on Rumble, by the way. Rumble.com/leecamp. Just give me 1 second. You can sing some bad elevator music to yourself to fill the time.